Thank you for tuning in to the best parenting show on the internet, Post Daily Dose.
It's the Post. It's the Post. It's the Post. The Post Daily Dose. It's the Post. It's the Post. It's the Post. The Post Daily Dose. It's the Post. It's the Post.
Hey guys, Kristi, Saul, the co-founder of the Post+Institute, coming at you live tonight, pulling out my two. Doesn't everybody carry these books in their car with them? My two favorites. Remember, we got this one on promotion from Fear to Love. You can get that at feartolovebook.com. And then tonight, I'm actually pulling out Brian's book, The Great Behavior Breakdown. I'm going to be talking about that a little bit. I think it was about the middle of last week, if I remember right. There was a post. I can't remember what the post was. But I do remember a comment, and the comment had to do with what about the Chattery Child, basically. So that led me to bring out Brian's book, The Great Behavior Breakdown. And if you've not ever read this book, or you don't have this book, man, it's so good. So one of the things that Brian did in this book is he actually took out addresses, let's see, lying, stealing, defiance, incessant chatter. Presented here are 27, yes, Mimi Burr is right. I've got my fuzzy sweater on, getting ready to go in the grocery store. In this book, The Great Behavior Breakdown, Brian takes 27 of the most serious, problematic, and challenging behaviors, and he breaks them down and helps us understand them. And one of the things that he talks about in this book is the Chattery Child. I've had a few families that I've worked with who brought this up because it's one of those behaviors that it's not dangerous. They're not hurting themselves or anybody else, but it can just really be taxing, right? It can really, I think about my mom in particular as I'm talking about this, because she has these very interesting noise sensitivities, and so if she would have had a chattering child, that would have really been difficult for her. And I had the good fortune, I had the beautiful blessing that Marley was an early talker, and I'm going to guess that part of that came from not being mobile. So because of not being able to walk, then one, she was in the company of adults a lot. So she heard lots of adult talking and lots of adult communication. And it became necessary, right, for her to be able to tell us what her needs were. So what happened in that is I actually got to have a glimpse of the inner workings of the very, very young mind. So I got to see the verbal expression, because she didn't have that filter, wasn't developed yet. You know, the filter that talks about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and all the social norms. So I got to actually hear what the live stream of the 1-year-old. She started talking she was about 1.5 years when she started talking, and she talked nonstop. Literally, I can remember one time we had to go to Colorado because my mom was having a surgery. So me and my 2 older brothers were in the car, and it's a 12-hour drive, and she talked the entire time. She talked for 12 hours straight. I got to hear all about Tanzania Dora, that's for sure. So in chapter 9 of Brian's book, The Great Behavior Breakdown, he talks about that specifically. He talks about the chattering child. And one of the things that he points out is that this is, Mimi's laughing. Mimi knows a little bit about that chattering child. Mimi and I used to play some of the quiet game anytime we'd be taking Marley and Elijah out to dinner, because Elijah is usually very quiet, but when we would be going out to eat, he would get very, very, very chattery. And so it's like being tortured with noise, Lori says. Yes, right? So one of the things that Brian reminds us of, and as I've been talking, I'm sure you've picked up on, is that the chattering behavior is rooted in stress. And when we stress, we regress. And so you are gaining access in that moment to a fear barrier. You're gaining access in that moment to a window of being able to see the regression and the need for attention, not just, as he says at the very top of page 120 in this book in bold letters, reminding us, remember that children don't act out for attention. They act out because they need attention. And oftentimes, you'll notice, just start noticing when the chattering comes up. Start noticing what things spark the chattering. And so one of the things that Brian talks about is he says, sit down, give them 20 minutes and listen. And a lot of times what you'll find when you're like, okay, baby, I can tell you really need my attention. So I'm going to sit down. Come sit down with me. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to give you my full undivided attention. And so he's like, so at first they're probably going to stammer because you're like, now that you have my full attention, they get a little uncomfortable. So it might even be, come sit next to me, because I can tell you're really needing me. Come sit on my lap. And then as soon as you give that 20 minutes of time in and you get ready to go, he's like, that chattering starts again. And he just explains it so beautifully and so compassionately. And here's one of the gifts that Brian+Post brings to the world of parenting children who come from trauma. And honestly, I don't know anybody who does it better. He just speaks so lovingly to the subconscious. And he says this, come here, honey, and look at me. And you put your hands on the sides of your child's face sweetly, and you say, honey, I love you so much. Everything's going to be okay. You think just because I've been listening to you for 20 minutes, and now I've got something I need to do, that I may never come back and listen to you again. Well, honey, that's just not true. I will be back. What I want you to do is to tell me right now, I'm scared. Say, Mom, I'm scared when you walk away. Coach this child to communicate with their subconscious, helping them hear their own need that's driving the behavior. Remember that the unconscious cannot stand up when the light of the consciousness is shined upon it. Also, in regards to that, our own subconscious starts getting flipped. So we may need to even shine the light around in our own subconscious and identify why the chattering makes us so nervous, why we feel like we have to be completely plugged into everything that's said, or maybe there's just a feeling like if I stop and listen, it's going to take forever. I'm never going to get the other things done that's on my agenda to do. I shouldn't indulge my child in this. Payday Friday, I need this book. Honestly, Lori, I strongly encourage it. Actually, here's something you might think about. If you go to feartolovebook.com, if you've not already gotten this book, once you buy the book, of course, we've got upsells, right? Of course, if you're going to buy the knives, you need another set of pots and pans to go with it, right? But wait, there's more. So, Lori, when you go to feartolovebook.com, you're going to get an opportunity for what's called the Great Behavior Breakdown Bundle, where you get that book included with this book, plus you get an audio set that this book was based on. So the audios were actually created first, and then the book was created second. And in the audio, Brian goes through all of these same behaviors, and he talks about them specifically. And I think there's also, I believe that there's an e-workbook that goes with it as well. And so that can be one of the best ways to get a pretty good deal and get both the audio version of the Great Behavior Breakdown plus the book, plus the workbook, plus From Fear to Love. So, and some other great bonuses that come along with it. So yes, the other thing I have found to also be very helpful in those moments is loving touch. So what I find is the key element, the key thread that connects it all is the stress that your child is experiencing. They may also be feeling triggered by a fear of abandonment and a fear of not really being seen and heard, and anxiety, just generalized stress. It can be I do it. It's so weird. When I do it most often, I find is when I fly. Like, I'll be on the airplane and I'll fly to wherever I'm going, and I get off the airplane and I am suddenly just chatty Cathy. I'm just like, and it's just stress. It's just an outpouring. It's just a way of the stress outpouring. It's just an avenue for stress to be released. And also, sometimes I see like that interruption, like we're trying to teach our children manners, and there's this chatty child and there's this anxious chatty child, and it seems like every time somebody else is wanting to say something, the chattiness seems to bubble up to the surface again, right? And you're trying really hard not to be super critical, and you're trying to be loving, and you're trying to redirect, but it's just not getting there. And so bring that child closer to you. And just as you're talking to the other people, I'm just, if you guys could see me, you'd be cracking up, really. I'm sure people in the parking lot at the grocery store laughing, because I'm sitting here pretending like I'm rubbing a child's back, right? Like they're sitting right next to me. And I'm just rubbing their back, and I'm loving on them, because it's almost like they feel invisible. And so to help make sure, because children don't act out just because they want attention, they act out because they really need attention, and different children need different reassurance at different times. And so that is a nonverbal way that you can pull them in closer. You're not having to do a lot of correcting. You can just rub their back, maybe give them something to fidget with while they're sitting there with you, so that you can engage with other people and they can still feel like they are visible, like you've not forgotten them. Remember, we don't, depending on your child's history and what you may or may not know, it's not uncommon for them to be really overlooked. And abandonment is real. Neglect is real. It may be that, I think about, there's a special series, I know you guys will be able to help me out here. It's about Anne of Green Gables, but it's on Netflix, and it's a remade version. And she's the chattiest. She is the chattiest little child you can imagine. She's about 12, and she's really smart and very articulate. And you can literally see the stress and where she drops down and regresses into this super, super chatty child out of the anxiety that she's experiencing. And so every avenue that we can help soothe the stress, meet the anxiety, the need in terms of the anxiety that we see them experiencing, then that's just going to help. That's going to help reduce that stress, reduce the anxiety, and therefore you'll see a reduction in that chatty child behavior. And you know what? If you're really, really tired and your ears are really, really tired, it is okay to say, and now we're going to play the quiet game. And during the quiet game, practice your breathing. Remind yourself this isn't life and death. Remind yourself that this is just a child, and you're helping them grow through difficult things that they've already been through, and that we're here to walk it out with them. So, use the quiet game as a chance to build your reserves, to get your own brain filled with oxygen so that your fuse can be extended, your window of tolerance can be expanded. And so, I hope that those little tips and tricks for helping the chatty child will also help you. Lori says, yes, all 3 grandsons have abandonment issues, and they are full of anxiety. So, Lori, if you're not familiar with the concept of time in as a routine where you spend one-on-one time with each of those kids, it can really help build the oxytocin response. The oxytocin response is that people call it the cuddle chemical, the love hormone, and part of its job is to help calm the amygdala and help calm the cortisol. And so that may help with some of that anxiety. I encourage families to try time in daily for 6 weeks. We suggest 10-20-10, which is 10 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes after any significant separation, and 10 minutes at night. Now, I know that is ideal. I know. So it might be 5 minutes. It might be 2 minutes. It might be here and there. But that time in, when you're just really focused on them, it's not time of teaching. It's just time when you are all about them. You're listening to them. You're following their lead. Even letting them guide the play. In terms of when you're interacting, letting them be the boss and tell you what to do. All of those things can help reduce their anxiety level, and over time it actually helps build their ability to have cooperative play. It's amazing, isn't it? It's so interesting to me how autonomy and independence actually grows best out of the early life attachment and bonding process and those times when they are actually dependent on us. So, man, we ended up talking about quite a lot tonight. Don't forget, Great Behavior Breakdown, great little book. And I know Brian always has his beautiful closer any given moment. We have one or two choices. We can act out of our same blueprints of stress and fear, or we can take 3 to 10 deep breaths, clear our minds, build our own oxytocin reserve, and we can choose love. Much love to you guys. It's going to be a little while before Big Pop is back with us, but we're going to keep Daily Dose rolling. So if you guys have any specific behavior challenges that you want us to talk about, let me know. Feel free to shoot us an instant message or comment down below in our Daily Dose comment thread. Much love to you guys tonight when you lay your head bed down on the pillow. All those things that you might be worried and ruminating about, just set those aside. You can pick those up anytime. Pick one thing. Pick one beautiful moment from your day. Blow that up. Let that be what you go to bed with. Let that be what permeates your being. Let that become the building block for tomorrow. Much love for you guys. Y'all take care.